speaker of today, someone that I've worked with on a project for the last couple of years now. We've had some of our Targeto rate money has been going towards working with private entities, and in this case, it's golf clubs. And it's not necessarily an obvious choice at first for some people, but golf courses are some of the kind of untapped green areas that we've got around the region. Massive potential for environmental rehabilitation and wildlife in general. And so, with that in mind, we commissioned a restoration plan to be done at Renuera Golf Course in, was it 2019? I don't know, the years have just flown by. Thanks, COVID. And I'd like to introduce Spencer to you. He's the superintendent at Renuera Golf Club, and he's going to talk to you about the plan and the other work and things that have happened around it. So, take it away.
Thank you. Cool. Kia ora. Thank you, Jane, for inviting me, and thanks for the opportunity to be able to chat to everyone. Pretty exciting. Just want to test everyone's honesty. I really want brutal honesty here, if I may, please, and see what everyone thinks. How many of you like golf courses? Put up your hands. It's totally fine to be completely honest, break the ice. If you hate them, you hate them, I understand. It's all good. Obviously, golf courses use up a lot of land, and there is a history and a perception that golf courses aren't the greatest for the environment. There is a movement underway in golf courses throughout the world, and it's happening here in New Zealand slowly but surely. And thanks to Jane and Auckland Council and Department of Conservation for everything they are doing to help us. And hopefully I can show you a little bit about what we've been up to and what the potential possibilities are. So, yep, we embarked in 2014 on a bit of an environmental program. The club wanted to go down that route and be responsible land users, and so we decided to go with a GEO program, Golf Environmental Organisation program. It's a non-profit organisation based out of Scotland that gives criteria and guidance on how to manage golf courses to the highest possible environmental standards. So a little bit about what the club's really doing and how that looks. As I said before, we started with a plan and a strategy back in 2014 to enhance our operations and become more sustainable holistically. We looked at not only nature and environment, but we looked at the entire business from top to the bottom to enhance and complement the wonderful work done next door to us in the Waitarua Reserve. It's an amazing piece of land and amazing wetlands, and we felt very strongly it was important to complement that piece of land. Create viable habitats and increase land conservation, and basically add on to the reserve, as I've said before, and create an even bigger viable green space. Improve accessibility to the golf course. That's obviously a really important thing for all golf courses, especially in New Zealand, is accessibility of the public and the neighbours to that green space in various forms, and not be closed off, insular little business that has that perception of being elitist. So really important for us to start working on that back then. Also to seek out and develop partnerships with conservation organizations and like-minded groups. Try and achieve an internationally recognized certification if we could, and hence why the GEO, or Golf Environmental Organisation plan, came about, and I believe we were the first golf course in New Zealand to adopt that program and follow that route. So what does that look like? This is from GEO's website. It's a little guideline of what we were looking at and what areas we needed to focus on to reach our goals. Nature, obviously, that is probably the biggest single item we could influence on the golf course. Having such a big piece of land under our control, we can do great work on the golf course. But there's also water. I know golf courses have got a bad rap throughout the world for being huge water users, polluters of waterways, that sort of thing. That's something we were hyper aware of and we needed to sort out. Pollution control, that's an obvious. Supply chain, obviously supply chain, I'll get into that in more detail as we go through, but that's a huge part of what we do and a huge part of being a responsible business, I believe. Energy, massive one again, and one of the really important ones that's often neglected is community and community engagement and how we can make the golf club the center of the community, a hub for learning and education and healthy outcomes, basically. We have approximately 1,500 neighbors that live directly on our boundary. So that's a big part of what we do as well. So starting off on nature, I just threw some slides on there of things that we've been trying to do. Obviously, you can see some pest trapping going on the left there, the possum traps. Bottom left is areas of the golf course that we didn't need to mow, that were being mowed for years and years and years for no apparent reason. We decided to naturalize them and turn them into wild grasslands again and start introducing wildflowers into them. Reduces carbon footprint, increases habitat, and it's just basically a win all the way around. And we're even using them as buffer zones now, which is pretty cool. It was a bit of a tough sell to our members in the beginning because they were like, oh, we want a perfectly manicured golf course. Well, that's not always the right thing to do. Couple of Patiki, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. My South African can go wrong sometimes, the accent. But we, because of the pest trapping and some of the other things, we had a first successful breeding and fledging of Patiki on the golf course last year, which was pretty awesome. We're really happy about that. They're obviously very shy and elusive birds, and we're hoping we see that more and more. In the middle, a bit of a native tree replanting concept plan. Thanks again to Jane and the amazing help from council, we were able to put together a full plan of restoration for native tree planting and riparian planting and so on and so forth. And I'm pleased to say, thanks again, we're going to be doing quite a bit this autumn and winter. So 770 plants going in the ground. Obviously rats, and then we've also got a number of beehives on site now. The bees were brought in for a number of different reasons, the biggest one being an indicator of environmental health for myself as a golf course superintendent. Obviously everyone's aware of the impact of pesticides and insecticides specifically on bee populations. I wanted beehives on the course so that I could see and make sure that our impacts in maintaining the golf course weren't having detrimental effects on the environment, and bees are a great indicator of that. We started with them about 4 years, almost 5 years ago now, with 2 hives. We're up to 23 hives now. We had a clean out of honey 2 weeks ago. 100 kilos of honey came out, and we're selling that in the restaurant now, which is pretty cool. And they are continually improving and getting better, and we're adding new hives all the time from swarms that we're catching free on site. So it's pretty awesome. Just a little bit about more detail on the nature program. Over the last year, we've had a big pest control program in place for a while now. But over the last year, we've had some nice successes. 252 rabbits removed, about 55 possums, well, definitely 55 possums, 36 rats, mice, magpies. No mustelids in that area for so far, thank goodness. And hence why we've got a huge rabbit problem, we believe, because yeah, the rabbits are out of control in the reserve and on the golf course. So we do regular shoots. We don't use poisons because of the neighborhood we're in, and we're worried about pets and that sort of thing. So we do regular shooting. Pest plant control, that's been a little bit slow in terms of all our programs, but it's picking up pace now with our volunteer group, and we're going through the golf course and clearing out pest plants. I haven't got any stats on those yet, but we're targeting privet first, moth plant. Agapanthus were planted en masse for some reason back in the day. They got to go. So we're working on those, and we're nowhere near a finished product, but we're getting there. Now that the pests are under control and we're starting to reduce those pest plants as well, we're starting the replanting and vegetation process and trying to convert what is primarily exotic plant species and tree species on the site to more native pockets of bush and start creating habitat for more native species of birds and so forth. We've already spoken about the beehives and wildflowers. We've been working with Men's Shed. We've got a number of ruru or moorpork nesting boxes up. We're hearing a lot of them on the golf course, which is amazing. And we haven't had a successful breeding yet. We keep an eye and we inspect the boxes at the end of each summer. We haven't had anything yet, but I'm still hopeful on that one. But we are hearing them and seeing them, which is fantastic. So going back to the pest control, possums, this year, over the last 3-4 months, we might get 1 possum a month now in our 45 traps that we've got on site. So, and that's pretty much on, when we do get them, it's on the interface between ourselves and the Waiatarua Reserve. So we suspect they might be coming from the reserve. Biological controls of aquatic pest plants. We don't like using herbicides or that sort of thing in the bodies of water to remove pest plants. So we've been using different controls. The one that we've implemented with consent from council was sterilized and radio chip grass carp, Asian grass carp, which has been hugely successful. The waterways are, the ponds and the water that we do have is a lot healthier and a lot more open because of it. We've got a number of tui feeding stations, and then, as I mentioned, new naturalized grassland areas totaling about 6 hectares now, and many other smaller projects. And you can see, I know dead animals is normally a sensitive subject, but I'm sure everyone will appreciate that little picture at the end there. Moving on to water, water conservation and water quality management is super important for us. So you can see a couple of, we do monthly testing of our water bodies, where water comes into site, where we store it, and when it's released from site, we test that as well, just to make sure that we are maintaining or improving the water quality. And one of the really cool things about my job is we know from on an agronomic level that grass is a really good filter for polluted water. And so irrigating with poor quality water onto golf courses, the water that goes through the substrate back into the streams typically tends to be a lot cleaner if you're using the right agronomic processes and not using too many herbicides or pesticides, which I'm getting to. We also, with consent, put in some freshwater mussels in our storage and holding ponds to help filter and clean out the water bodies and reduce some of our problem pathogens in the water, especially when I started, we had every now and then there was botulism issues and so on and so forth. And since then, things have cleaned up quite nicely. We haven't had any more. So a lot of detail up there. But water conservation, we don't use any potable water to irrigate the golf course with. It all comes from the Stonefields development next door to us. That used to be a quarry, and the water gets pumped out through the golf course into the Waiatarua Reserve. The council stormwater team was actually quite pleased that we were taking more water, because the reserve and those wetlands couldn't handle too much more water. So it was a win-win for both parties. And we reduced the flooding risk now further down as a result, which is pretty cool. We do have, because the water quality coming out of that area is not very good at all, we do have our own on-site treatment plants, and we do treat the water. We have to treat it before we use it on grass, because it's actually toxic to grass. the pH is really high and there's all sorts of other issues with the water quality when we get it. So we treat it, correct it, put it on the golf course, and help improve the water quality on site and leaving site as a result. We have currently a partnership with Watercare and Project Lightfoot, to reduce our potable water consumption we dedicated ourselves to reducing our consumption by 5% this last year. We exceeded that. We saved more than 5% on our potable water usage, and we're looking to set new targets this coming year on that too. And part of that's educating our 1,800 or so members as to water usage and water conservation. So we've got little signs up all around the club and in the locker rooms and toilets saying, hey, please conserve water for this and that reason. And so far it's been quite well received. We are very fortunate to have a state-of-the-art irrigation system, which is very, very precise and fine-tuned. We can calculate how much moisture we lose from the golf course in terms of evapotranspiration each day in actual liters, and the system will help us calculate in liters how much we replace onto the turf. Typically, we only put back about 80% of the water we lose from evapotranspiration each day. So it's quite a precise little tool that we have, and it's quite fun to see how it works. And healthier grass is actually drier grass, believe it or not. Not too dry, but not too wet. Healthier turf needs to be slightly on the dry side. And then we also use extensive use of non-ionic wetting agents through the irrigation system to help the irrigation water penetrate the soil faster and the plant to use it faster at night before daylight and evaporation starts the next day. So that's, again, one of the tools we use to reduce the amount of water we use, and it's very successful. Water quality management, we've recently put in nanobubble technology in our storage ponds to aerate the water column, turn over the water column so you don't get stratification of temperatures in the water, which creates problems with pathogens and disease and blue-green algae and so on and so forth. We do pH correction of the water as well. As I mentioned before, the pH is very high. Again, biological control of aquatic plants. We had someone many years ago, for some reason, release their pet koi in our ponds. So we took us quite a while to get rid of those koi. I'm pleased to say we got rid of that pest. And then, as I mentioned, monthly water testing, introduction of freshwater mussels, and then we have no spray zones around our water hazards and bodies of water on the golf course. Pollution control, super important these days, as with most things. You'll see up at the top there, we've got dual recycling bins on every hole on the golf course. So we try and teach our members and golfers to separate, and then we recycle accordingly. We also keep an eye and track our emissions. We use extensively, about 95% of our fertilizers are organic and plant-based organic fertilizers, not animal waste-based fertilizers. We have an energy efficiency and water consumption and waste to landfill management plan in place. And as I said, our greenhouse gas emissions reporting that we do every year to track which way we're tending. That's all in that piece there. Part of that is an integrated pest management plan, which includes all pests, and is a thorough plan from cultural control to biological control to different forms of control, and only the last resort is to use chemical control. And when we do have to use chemical control, it's very targeted, very specific, and very risk managed, so we don't create too many problems. We've got a really good recycling system, and we track and measure all our recycling to report on that. All our machines, we do use quite a few electric mowers. We were the first in New Zealand to bring in electric mowers and start using them. They've reduced our fuel usage greatly, about 4,000 litres per year, which is quite a huge carbon saving. The rest of our fleet of machinery, those that are diesel, they're all biodiesel ready, and we've signed up with Z Energy for biodiesel when they start delivering. Our restaurants use compostable and recycled packaging, similar to what we saw on the table at the back there, which is really cool. Bulk purchasing is really important for reducing single-use plastics, and quite a few other things going on there. Sorry, any questions so far? Yes. It was more by chance than by actual, how should I say, going and looking for it. So, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, Jane. It Correct. Yeah, so it's something we're actually, and I'll get into it a little bit towards the end. Yeah, we are trying to change their minds. Yes, sorry, let me. Neighbors have been fantastic. And when we started telling neighbors about this environmental program, they actually really got on board with it and got excited. So much so that they actually, most of my neighbors now tell me when they've got rabbits near their house and please come and shoot them. I'm like, oh, are you sure you want me shooting outside your house? Yeah, go ahead, go for it, you know. So it's been amazing. Members have been the tough sell. Most of them have been fantastic, but as with any large group of people, you'll get a small minority that'll feel entitled to have a different opinion, regardless of whether the opinion's correct or not, and they shout it from the rooftops and can create havoc sometimes, especially, unfortunately, in that area being perceived as quite affluent or is affluent. There are a lot of people there that are very highly opinionated. So selling them on native grassland areas and this and that, initially they were quite skeptical, but I think we've changed that perception over time, and for the most part, fully supportive. In fact, our board was really excited when I presented that environmental management plan from council. I presented it to our board and they looked over it, they read it through it, a big document, and they were like, yep, this is fantastic. Do it, go for it, implement it. And now that's an official policy document. Jane would be a better place to answer that one, probably. Yeah, it's not cheap on Tuesday mornings. Yep.
The concept of you shooting rabbits in a very built-up area
Yep.
interests me. I work on a very small project over the hill from you,
Yep.
and we've got rabbits down there. I know you didn't get the local headhunter group with 47s
No.
but who is doing this for you, and who do you need permission from?
So registered hunter with obviously the appropriate licenses, and myself. I go out with him to make sure he does it according to health and safety guidelines, because ultimately,
Do you need police?
correct. So every time we go out and do a shoot, we notify the police, we tell them what we're doing, we give them all the information. I do a full health and safety induction and site preparation every day. I notify all my neighbors every time we go out and shoot, and give them that opportunity, and I've never had anyone complain. It's been absolutely amazing. The buy-in from the community has been incredible, but it's a trust process that builds over years, and yeah. So we've been really fortunate. I've even, when we've been out in the evening shooting, the odd evening, we find members of the public walking around the golf course at 11 o'clock at night. So it's really risky, but we're super careful and we follow a very specific set of procedures. Yeah. Sure. Not yet, and I've actually got a great idea. I'm glad you mentioned it. So one of the ideas I wanted to do with them is pet food. Potentially human food. I'm yet to find someone that'll be brave enough to try it, even though it's fantastic lean meat. Yep. They are amazing, and they're healthy. They're healthy meat too. So there's huge opportunities for them to be put to amazing use. Totally. Yes, sir. Yep. Yep. Yes. So I've done the tunnels. I've got trail cams that I've put out for monitoring. I've got 10 Doc 200s out there. Yeah, I've tried pretty much everything to ascertain whether we do have mustelids on site, and so far, absolutely no indication. And that's why I suspect the rabbits are going crazy. Yeah, that's a really sensitive, and it's a good question, but unfortunately I can't do any cat control because we've got 1,500 people that live directly on our boundary. You could. It's a bit of a political minefield for the club that we're not brave enough to take on just yet. So, yep, sure. Yeah, shooting them as well. We don't like to use poisons. Correct. Yeah. No, just an air rifle whenever I can, with the hunter we'll take out magpies when we get the opportunity. So I hope I'm running right on time. I'll shoot. No. I've got quite a bit to go still. So energy, huge part of our operation. We use huge amounts of energy to run a golf club that caters for 1,800 members, and 60,000 rounds of golf a year get played. So a lot of energy goes into producing a facility and playing surfaces for that type of standard and the standard that people expect. So on the top left there, you'll see that's one of our electric mowers that got stuck in the mud over there. We had to tow that one up, but that's one of those mowers I was telling you about. Again, we closely keep an eye and track on our fuel and CO2 emissions. As I mentioned before, biodiesel, our machines are biodiesel ready. I'm absolutely dying for Z Energy to get A into G and get it rolled out so that we can use it, because it'll make a huge difference. And then we source all our electricity from a fully renewable supplier. That was one of the biggest projects I undertook when I started there. I looked at solar power to start with, because we do have huge roof space, more than enough to power our whole operation. The capital outlay was too big, so I looked at the next best thing. And through the tracking of our energy consumption, I realized that we actually had 3 electricity providers for the golf club when I started. One for the greenkeeper shed in the pump house, one for the clubhouse, and one for the rest of the facilities. So I amalgamated it all, and we put it out to tender with Mercury, Ecotricity, and Meridian, got quotes, and we came back and found the best price. It was a lot cheaper than what we were spending, and we reduced our carbon footprint massively. So we're with Ecotricity, and they are carbon zero certified, which is pretty cool. And there's a little bit about what I've just been talking about. Measuring energy usage is the big part, so you know where to target and reduce your energy. Electricity, solar, energy efficient appliances, really important as well, because we obviously run a lot of fridges and that sort of thing, cooking equipment, heating, and so on and so forth. Use only electric golf carts for the members to play in. It's pretty standard these days though. Highly efficient mowing patterns. We've reduced our diesel and petrol usage by approximately 20% other than the electric mowers, just by changing the directions in which we mow, believe it or not. So instead of mowing short kind of mowing lines where there's lots of turns and intricate patterns, we just keep it simple and mow long straight lines. Reduces the time we're mowing and reduces our fuel usage as a result. And in training the guys how to get from one area to the other without detours and wasting fuel and that sort of thing, especially in winter when it's really wet. We don't want them getting stuck all over the place in the mud. We've actually dedicated specific shortcuts and lines and mapped it for them so that they don't waste time and fuel, and it's had a huge savings. Partnership with Light Club Lightfoot, they've been awesome in helping us. And educating members and our golfers about energy usage. Again, the use of signage around the clubhouse, little sign at the light switch saying please switch off when you leave the room, those sorts of things. It all creates that consciousness and that awareness of what we're trying to achieve. Community, big one right there. I'm so happy to see sustainable schools here. I need to chat soon. That's a big part of what we do. Community, we can't survive without the community, to be honest. And I wish more golf clubs would realize that they can't survive without their communities. They need to be the center and the hub and the place where everyone gathers, and for good things, for education, for healthy outcomes, for environmental purposes, you name it. So up there's the year 11s from Sacred Heart. We've been doing outdoor classrooms with them for the last 3 or 4 years. They've been hugely supportive. I'm trying to roll that out to more schools. And we've been using them when they come in to teach about environmental best practice, tree replanting, pest control, those sorts of things. Playing sport and why it's healthy to play sport and not sit gaming, even if it is just golf. Careers in the industry and so on and so forth. So it's been really cool, and I think there's huge scope for more golf courses to use schools in their zones and their areas to do this kind of thing. And I know big corporates would also be interested in supporting such programs. So we've got an extensive junior golf development program at the club, quite successful. Down there, the lovely ladies from DOC doing a pest trapping workshop. And those guys are all superintendents of other golf courses in Auckland. So we've used our own site as a training tool for other golf courses to come and learn about pest trapping. That gentleman there is one of our volunteer members who learned about trapping and is now helping us. Obviously, we do the normal sort of golf stuff and functions and that sort of thing. There's a lot up there. Sorry, I don't want to bore you with all that. Outdoor classrooms, private events. This is a really cool one, and this is actually how I met Jane through DOC. Was we had a Greenkeepers Revenge golf day for a bit of fun, and we raised funds for Motihi Island to buy a fluttering shearwater bird caller. And we used that golf day as an educational thing for our members to learn about environmental stuff. Each hole was themed. One hole was pest trapping, the other one was organic fertilizers, the other one was native trees. In fact, The 17th hole, I got one of my suppliers to bring a truckload of native trees in bags, put them on the green, created a forest on one of the greens, and people had to putt through all the trees to get to the hole. And it was really cool. People were looking, oh, that's beautiful. And so it worked really well. We raised some good money for that project at Motuihi, and I believe this year was the first successful breeding and fledging of fluttering shearwaters there. Just one. We are so happy, even if it is just one, that we've had some sort of positive. Yep. Yeah, I believe some of the people that live on Waiheke hear that calling system every night and aren't very happy about it, but they can blame me for that. That's fine. We actively communicate environmental issues via our Facebook page, website, especially with regards to those two programs, the Pest Free and so on and so forth. So if ever you on Facebook, please look us up. There's pretty cool stuff on there, not just regular golf stuff. Large and very successful juniors, schools and students. We've been actively developing partnerships with all of those organizations, which is key, again, to being that community-based club. And then the big one now for me is actively taking part in national and regional organizations and associations. So I've been fortunate, or unfortunate, depends how you look at it, to be on the board of the New Zealand National Greenkeepers Association. And my whole portfolio on that association is driving environmental issues and trying to get this out to all 390 golf courses in the country. And I'm pleased to say the uptake has been phenomenal so far. They were obviously skeptical in the beginning, but it's really gaining traction now, and it's quite exciting to see. And then right at the end, supply chain. So supply chain is really important for all of those reasons. Basically to implement ethical purchasing policies at the club, support local businesses, reducing our carbon footprint by doing that, buy local New Zealand-made products, use environmentally certified products where possible, BioGrow, all of those certifications are really important to us. Bulk purchasing, recycling with reputable recyclers that we know that they're not just saying they're recycling and then it ends up in landfill anyway. It's actually making sure we track it to the end of life. Purchasing energy efficient appliances and machinery, influencing our suppliers to try and give us products and services that can help us achieve our outcomes. And I believe if everyone does that and asks their suppliers for products and services that are more sustainable, will eventually change the whole of the economy. I really do believe that. And investigating and adopting new technologies. There's amazing stuff happening around the world, and it's just a matter of someone and people being proactive in getting those implemented here. Thanks. That's awesome. Holistic, broad-based, and showing how everything does tie together at the end to achieve good outcomes. You know, if we were using pesticides and all that to pollute, it doesn't matter how much trapping and how much other good stuff we do if it's not a fully integrated management plan. So hopefully, and with awesome people's help such as Dan and Doc and a lot of others, if we can get this rolled out to 390 golf courses, starting with Auckland first, we have the ability to make some pretty massive change. So thanks. Any questions? Yes. Correct.
Do you have the figures available that you share with other golf courses that show the investment required up front to do
definitely, definitely. We do, yeah. And actually, we've got an upcoming Fine Turf seminar in June in Manukau where all the golf courses are getting together, and we'll present that, along with also educating them on funding sources. So there's heaps of funding available for certain projects. And a lot of those golf courses just need to look for funding opportunities to achieve those outcomes if they can't do it themselves. The private golf clubs that are typically a bit better funded, that does take more work and it does take more persuading. And that's something as an industry we need to take responsibility of and drive that as a priority in our industry to say, hey, environmental issues and that sort of thing is not a nice to do. This is a must do. You must set aside budget. You must actively pursue. You must be responsible land users and not just relegate it to, oh, we'll see. So our trees, we sourced funding from Aoraki local board. After we got our tree management or environmental enhancement plan in place from council, we used that as a document, supporting document towards getting that funding. Department of Conservation's been amazing, but there's so many funding streams, Billion Tree Project, local boards, there's just heaps. And each one has a different set of criteria, and depending on whether golf clubs own the land or lease the land, they can apply accordingly. In our case, 50-50, more than 50-50. We've spent more than 50% in a lot of cases on our environmental initiatives. But here's what's really interesting. By changing how we've done things and sourced organic fertilizers and changing electricity suppliers, we've actually saved a bunch of money. So our organic fertilizers, for example, are half the price of the synthetics. So I've been able to redirect that budget into trapping or this or that. So it's just about becoming smarter about how you do things, and not just, again, one of those perceptions we've got to change in our own industry is not just doing things because they've always been done like that, is actually changing the paradigm and going, hey, is there a better way of doing things? Is there a more responsible way of doing things? I know the guys there, I'll give it a crack. We'll get there. With again, it's changing perceptions and minds over time. And we will get there, and having these conferences and that sort of thing goes a long way. I heard last night, fortunately, the Minister of Conservation, Kiri Allen, is a keen golfer herself, and she'll be coming to our conference too. And she'll be one of our guest speakers, so I'm putting her front and center and driving it to change our own minds and our own thoughts from the get-go. We have no limits on our site. The only limit and the only concerns we have is health and safety based. So we don't want people getting hurt by a stray golf ball while they're walking their kids on the golf course. That's the last thing we want. So we've told all our neighbors and friends that, before 7 a.m. in the morning or after 6 in the evening, please go out and have a good time. Enjoy the golf course. There's no golfers around. Again, no, that's not typical. This is something that we as an industry have to change in our own minds and our own processes. That the members, and it goes all the way to our members who become our board members, to change their mindsets from being, oh, this is our little kingdom, to this is everyone's playground. It's, so it takes time. Yes, sir. Not at all. The transition is pretty smooth. From moving over to organic fertilizers, we found immediate success. And over time, as the soil health improved, we were getting less pests, less insect and fungal activity, and less weeds because we got a healthier stand of grass. So we're using less water as a result. That's anecdotal, but we're definitely using less fungicides and insecticides because the turf is healthier, the soil ecology is healthier and able to protect itself better. And it's the technologies in organic fertilizers or regenerative agriculture is amazing these days. Just on an interesting side note as well, grass and turf per square meter there's no studies done in New Zealand yet, but around the world there are studies to show that grass and turf sequesters CO2 and carbon into the soil more efficiently and at higher rates per square meter than most trees. Really interesting. We aren't able to use that in our carbon emissions calculations or offsets because there've been no official studies done in New Zealand, but elsewhere in the world it's a fact. So it's really interesting. Last one. Thanks. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Yep. Exactly right. And I have. And I actually did. We got 2 suppliers in to do a full study of our site, commission a full feasibility document for it. We looked at our ROIs. Our ROI was half of the lifespan of the panels. So effectively, on a 25-year lifespan of a solar panel, we'd be paying off that panel in 10 to 12 years, and in the next 10 to 12 years would be saving. We even have the opportunity on our site, because we've got so much roof space, is to generate far more power than we actually need and sell back to the grid. And that's a recent development in the industry, is that you can start selling power back to the grid. Obviously, the rates aren't very good, but so I've created, I think we've created quite a bit of enthusiasm in the club for that. It's now just trying to get it across the line in the future in terms of doing that. And I'm sure they will. I really feel optimistic. In fact, one of our corporate partners, Panasonic, were really keen to help us in that process and do the first batch of solar, because we were probably going to do it over 3 stages because it is so costly, and do it over 3 seasons, and then, yeah, well, we're getting there. Thank you.